What's up, everybody? Josh Meek, the Uber Geek here. We are back in VCV Rack. Last time we messed around in VCV Rack dealing with some modular synth stuff, we set up a simple modular synth, subtractive synth voice. So let's recreate that first, just as a recap. So we'll start with a VCO, an oscillator. So it makes noise. You can hear here. Just continual noise. If we pipe the volt per octave into the VCO, and then take it out, I'll be able to adjust the notes. So I can press notes on the keyboard and adjust the sound we're hearing. But I still can't stop and start the notes. So the thing to add that was our envelope generator paired with our VCA. So the gate from the keyboard, basically when I'm pressing the keys and when I'm not, goes into the gate of the envelope generator. That spits out an envelope, which goes into the VCA. And the, the sine wave comes into the VCA and then can go out now to the audio. So now we don't hear anything until I press a key. And there you go. Nice little simple synthesizer. So that's pretty cool. We're going to pair those things up there. But I think first we are going to remove these and then unplug the cables here and ditch this because I want to play with something a little different today. And I want to try out some modules from Mutable Instruments. So Mutable Instruments is a former, company that made modulars or made modular synth modules, and they are in VCV Rack under the name Audible Instruments. So they've all been recreated here, and they were able to because all of the modules created by this company or by this one person are open source. So even though the company doesn't exist anymore, lots of people have made essentially clones of these modules, both in hardware, actual physical modules, but also in software here. So the open source modules have been recreated in VCV Rack. They're all called Audible Instruments. But you can see when you hover over, it says based on Mutable Instruments and then the name of the module in question. So the first one that I want to mess with is what's called Resonator here in VCV Rack, but it's based on Mutable Instruments Rings. And Rings is a little bit different than what we've been playing with before. You'll notice some things that are similar, obviously. Volt per octave, we know what that's about. But the cool thing about this is we don't have to actually patch up the envelope generator and the VCA because it has some logic built in that will handle those things for us if we don't put inputs into each of these inputs. And part of that is because the goal of this module is not to be a continual sound coming from an oscillator. The goal of this module is to be more of like the sound of you hitting something or plucking a string, like a striking something, and then the sound that would resonate from that strike. So we'll keep it very simple right here at first. We'll take the volt per octave into volt per octave, and we'll take just the odd sound out. Or I guess we could do both. We'll do odd out into our left side and maybe even out into our right side. I'm actually not sure how often even produces sound. We're kind of experimenting with these here together for the first time. Now, this is technically all we have to do. And we are getting some sound out, as you can hear. We're only getting left-handed sounds. Maybe the odd doesn't actually fire that often, so let's do that a little bit differently. There we go. So the module's smart enough to know that when it senses a change in volt per octave, that it should actually re-trigger the note, essentially. Hit the thing that we're resonating. And you can hear it sounds like hitting something. Now the downfall here, and the reason why we're going to plug in our gate next, is if I press the same note twice, which I'm doing right now, it doesn't re-strum right now because it's not changing the volt per octave voltage. So to get it to actually change, we have to put something in the strum. And strum is basically where our gate is going to go. So strum, we're going to fire a gate every time you press a key, which will cause it to strum again, which will strike the string, strum the string, whatever you want to picture it as. So then I can hit the same key multiple times, which already sounds pretty cool. Let's turn this up a little bit. Awesome. All right, let's talk about the buttons then on our resonator, on our rings module. So first up, we have the polyphony. This is basically how many notes it can ring out at once. So this doesn't mean that I can play multiple notes at a time, but this means like if I play 2 notes very quickly, does it keep playing the previous notes? So right now it doesn't. It will overwrite the previous note with my new one, which you can kind of hear. But if I set it to the yellow, which is 2, oh, now it's actually doing the evens. Maybe we can put that back out here for just a moment. That's cool. And then we can press it again. Now we're in the red mode. The red mode actually has 4 notes of polyphony. So you can kind of hear that there's some harmonics going on that are a bit overlapping. But we'll keep it simple for right now. And yeah, we'll drop the even input. And we'll just take it back down to single note polyphony. Let's see. Before we get into the different types, let's go through each of the knobs. So frequency is basically the note that's going to play. So higher, lower, down in kind of a bass area. Which is cool. Brightness. Kind of hear what that sounds like. Almost changes like the material of what you're striking, how long it's going to ring out, how kind of metallic it sounds. So that's cool. Damping is exactly what that sounds like. How long the note rings out. How long those harmonics continue. And it can go a long time. So we'll keep that down all the way to almost like palm muted. I want it to ring a little bit. Maybe a little bit less bright. And then position is, I guess, kind of like where you are striking the string. So that's kind of best to hear what that's doing more than anything. And then structure. Just kind of changing the harmonic structure of what we're playing, which you can hear. Kind of like around there. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Now, our modes over here, right now, this is our resonator type. We're on green. The green resonator type, I think, is modal. We'll change that to sympathetic strings, is what this is called now. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Make our strings kind of bright here. So I think the idea with sympathetic strings is you hear the string that you hit, but then sympathetic in the sense that the other strings are vibrating because of the vibration of the first string. All right. And then the last mode here we can see is called modulated / inharmonic string. Kinds of crazy sounds there. So let's maybe go back to yellow. I was liking yellow. Sounds like a massive grand piano that's like slightly out of tune. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Now, one of the, I guess we'll call it a cliche in modular synths, is taking rings, which we have here, and sending it into Mutable Instruments Clouds. Rings and clouds is the stereotype, and it's a stereotype, I'll say, for a reason. So let's go ahead and play with that a little bit. It's a stereotype because it produces really cool atmospheric sounds that are very akin to like musical soundscapes, like a single moment stretched out over time. And they work really good as kind of the the bed for maybe other music that you are creating. And it's fun. It's really fun to play around with. And I've done that a little bit here, kind of before recording. So again, I'm no expert here in clouds, but it's again super fun to play around with. So we'll change the input. The odd will come here to the in, and then clouds actually is stereo out. So we'll go the left and the right, and now we should be able to now hear both sides and get a stereo output. So what clouds is, we'll talk about it a little bit before we start playing any sound into it. Clouds is a granular synthesizer. So what a granular sampler, I guess, is kind of what it's doing. So what that means is it's going to record a continual buffer of sound up to 8 seconds. And then we can manipulate the playback of sound from that buffer. And it can be a live buffer, or we can press this freeze button, and then it'll stop recording incoming sound, and we can continually manipulate the portion of sound that it had recorded at that point. And all the sound is broken down into what they call grains, which are kind of like little snippets of the sound that it has recorded. So the density is how many grains are produced from the source recording that we have. And the position is where in the audio recording those grains are being created from. The size is how large those grains are. And the texture is kind of like, I guess, what they sound like more than anything. And pitch is transposing them, making them higher or lower. in notes. So we'll try to get some cool sounds here. That's what we'll try to do. So right now, we'll take it all the way over to completely dry, and we should just hear rings through clouds with no changing whatsoever. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. We will up the in gain. Let's just max that out, just to make it a little bit louder as it's coming in. And then maybe we'll just up the output level too. Okay, so that's just rings still. So far, nothing is happening due to clouds. So now we're gonna up the dry wet signal. So again, this is the mix of what we're hearing just pure rings and what we're hearing for what clouds is doing. So I want to make it mostly what clouds is doing, but I want to have the ability to still play notes over top of it. So I'm going to put it about 75%. And we'll just start going. So right now, no grains are being produced because our density is straight up and down. Okay. But when we turn this up, ooh, things start to get a little freaky. You can hear things start to wobble around. Increase the texture here a bit. You can hear the louder notes are what Clouds is doing. The lower notes are what I'm playing. So when I turn this knob down, the position knob, I'm actually going back in time in the recording. Now, right now, it's only recording, I think, about 1 second. Yeah, so because our quality is pretty high, it's recording 1 second. I think it's fun you bump it up here into maybe the 4 second range. So the quality gets a bit lower, maybe more like cassette quality, but that actually helps out the sound, kind of the soundscape that we're trying to make. So we'll make it do 4 seconds. Yeah, you hear that fuzz? That's sick. All right, so I'm going to play a series of notes, and then I'm going to freeze them. And in freezing them, we are going to be able to then hold those notes in our kind of audio bank and play around with them. All right, so now those are frozen. And as we change the position, you can hear the notes. So there's the beginning. We bring the texture back a little bit. So it already sounds pretty gnarly, pretty mashed up, pretty crazy. Because our grains are overlapping a little bit. Again, up and down, no grains are produced. And as we increase, so this is let's go this way first. So it's producing grains at a steady rate until they start overlapping and causing weird harmonics. You can hear that? And then if we go the other way, it produces random grains. So you kind of get a sense for that. And the further we go, these random grains overlap. Awesome. And the texture, will increase that. I like that really high. It sounds great. Size, adjust the size of the grain. We can play with that a little bit. Almost sounds like a staticky old radio. Super fun. We can lower this down. We can, if you want to change things a little bit. We'll do a little bit less clouds, and then you can still play above it. So you can see how this can become almost a background for your patch. Which is very neat. But let's focus on just the sound coming out of clouds. Next thing I want to do is take the pitch down. Maybe all the way down. Let's just go real crazy here. So we're dealing with some really slowed down samples there that already were not great sounding. Now, this blend knob can do other things. That's the next thing we'll introduce here. So this mode button will change what the blend knob does. So first it was dry to wet, and now it's the stereo separation. So again, keep in mind that we're seeing both the left and the right audio. And when we increase this, we should see a increased difference in what the left and the right are doing. You get a sense of that there, and you can kind of hear it. Like that. That's good. And then we can press mode again. Now we get the feedback amount, and this is where things start to get real crazy. So if we increase the feedback, it's just going to kind of muddy the waters a bit, make everything sound a bit crazier. A bit more of that kind of wild soundscape that I'm going for. And then another mode is reverb that we have. Reverb, of course, is the kind of room echo. All right. I can bring the size down now a little bit. And maybe the number of grains produced. Because of that reverb that we have going on. So now we should be at no grains, so it's just reverb we're hearing. And we'll increase it slightly. You can hear it getting brought back in. Yeah. That's so cool. Kind of sounds like music for a haunted house. Yeah, so I think stereo separation is awesome in this module. I think a healthy amount of reverb is very good. That's back to 0. Get that about there. And it remembers the positions we have for each of these things. So again, if we want to blend it a bit differently, we can do that. And it remembers that we were all the way up on stereo spread, and we had a pretty decent amount of feedback. And a pretty decent amount of reverb. So it'll just sit here and do this forever. You can twiddle the knobs all you want. But the other thing that we can do is we can modulate these parameters in lots of different ways. So we can bring in our trusty LFO if we want. We've used that before. Again, LFO is a low frequency oscillator. So it's just going to slowly pulse, as you can see there. And what I want to do is I want to change the position, because that'll change the note that plays. So let's take our sine wave and bring it into the position CV input. You can hear as soon as we do that, things start to get crazy. So let's bring the reverb down. And maybe even the feedback. There you go. So you can hear the position changing. Yeah, there's that pulse. Now you have the LFO pulse. We can slow that LFO down. All right, so that's just gonna warp through the positions pretty slowly there, like that, which I do like. We can try it as a triangle. All right, let's do that, and then let's kind of turn everything back up. So additional feedback. And reverb. Now we can kind of twiddle the LFO knob to give that, different feeling. Let's do another LFO. That's going well. Maybe this one will be another sine wave into... What do we want to do? Maybe the density. I like inverted again too. Let's make that really, really slow. You can hear sounds coming through there. Turn down some of our feedback and reverb, so we can get a sense for kind of what it's doing. And these LFOs are running at different rates. Like, I'm not trying to match them or anything like that. So the position should be at different places as we change the density and so on. Which is cool. Now, these LFOs have different inputs. So there's a clock input, a reset input. Yeah, we can maybe do some things to modify when our LFOs run too. So let's see. What would be a fun way to do that? Maybe we could find a sequencer. Just something nice and simple. That is a... This one might be what we want. An 8-step unipolar voltage sequencer. So I think... Yeah, so this is going to do... It's going to walk through these things at a certain rate. It needs a clock input, so we also need a clock. Let's just get... This one seems okay. I don't mind this. So right now it's at 115. Let's put it up maybe 120. And is this one going? There it is, yeah. So we'll clock it here. I don't know what a difference between an out output and a gate output is. Let's just do out. And I want to reset this LFO. Alright, so that's a little hard to tell when things are happening here. But I want to reset it maybe every step first, just to see if it's working. So I think I want to turn these up. Okay, that appears that it is always on. Alright, let's make 2 off. We're not quite going fast enough. Let's do it at double time. So it's on until it steps to off. That's the 2. Okay, so let's turn everything off. 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 Except for 1. So every time it cycles back to 1, our LFO will reset. Just right there. So our LFO is going to go, but then it's going to kind of jump back to on when our sequence cycles through, which is not quite going to be the same rate as it would have on its own. Which is certainly fun. And the other thing we can do, we're enjoying doing this, let's get another LFO in place here. Let's see. Maybe a slightly different one than we did before. Here's one. Let's take this one. Now, this one has different outputs. Let's take the sine output. And let's actually take this into the BPM of our clock. And... that's pretty fast. Let's make that pretty slow. So this is kind of weird and crazy now. It is constantly changing the BPM of our clock. We'll do one of the weirder triggers here. That's maybe too often. Let's try 8. You can hear it kind of pulsing on there. That's fun. All right, let's see if we can make this do something else. Let's try changing the size. Take this LFO nice and slow here. Yeah, so we can really modulate some parameters there. Now, let's maybe see if we can add. So we still can play. We can still play rings over top of it, which is cool. But I think one more thing that we could do. This has a volt per octave. I don't know what that does. I've not tried it. So, oh, I realized that my head was over top of the LFO here. Sorry about that. Just the sine wave was coming out of it, and I was adjusting the rate there a little bit. All right. So let us maybe pull in another MIDI to CV, which should be here. This one, let's just do my keyboard. So I can play one with the keyboard and one with the actual piano keyboard. So volt per octave into here. Should let me change the pitch. That's wild. All right. All right, let's give up our soundscape that we've created here. And then we'll go back. Hear what it does not in frozen mode. So now all of the sound that we're feeding through will fade out after about 4 seconds. So that's some more input from rings. And let's drop this volt per octave for right now. Let's get another sequencer in play here. So that's pretty fun. I want to sequence rings a little bit and see if we can make a cool sound without being frozen. So again, we'll do a sequencer. We were liking that one that we just used, so let's find that one again, which is here. Now, let's see. We want the clock again here. I like the divided by 4. That seems good. So that's going to step quite a bit there. And let's see. We want the out to go into the volt per octave. And we want the gate to strum. That's fun. I can up our BPM here. I like the low notes there. I like that. And then at any point we can freeze again. We can also do interesting things like the LFO that's modulating our density can also reset our sequencer if we want. Very cool. Let's get that push button again that we played around with a bit at the very end of our last video. This will be the last thing we'll do. I want the... Let's see. What do I want? I want the... I also want the square wave out of here. I think I want 2 of these to come to the hold. Yeah, maybe we'll just do it this way. Let's get rid of the push button. There we go. So once in a while, the square wave is going to cause this to freeze. And finally, let's blend all the way wet. So I don't hear any of rings directly, but I'm only hearing clouds. That's cool. And then this will just go forever. Semi-randomly, we've just plugged all these things into each other. Let's see. Ooh, yeah, we can get into some random voltages maybe next time. Yeah, maybe we could play around with random. So this lowers the probability. Okay, and smooth output, exponential output, linear output, and stepped output. That's interesting. So let's maybe drop this sequencer. And take the... let's take the stepped into the volt per octave. Oh yeah, that's doing crazy stuff. Let's hear that dry. Awesome. All right, that's cool. And take that back over here into the wet world. Yeah, this is great. This is great. Just nonsense. Just complete noise. All right. Now it really is random. We can also run... Yeah, we can clock the rate. Maybe like this. There we go. All right. I'm going to turn things down there. And I I think we're going to call that a video. That's a lot of fun playing with rings into clouds with lots and lots and lots of modulation. So yeah, hopefully that's fun for you. I love poking around in these things and learning new modules and all the things that we can do with them. So next time, yeah, maybe we'll get into some more sequencing, some more random generation, and really continue this path of having a modular synth that just plays itself. Super fun. All right. See you, everyone.